As of August 2025, Trump's trade war is back, and it's bigger than ever. New tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods, and now a 25% blanket tariff on Indian imports are shaking global markets. But what's really going on here? Is this about economic power or political pressure? And who pays the price for governments, companies, or everyday people? Let's break down the global shockwave of Trump's tariffs and how they could reshape trade, consumer prices, and geopolitics. But before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share Let Me Tell You. Under the revived America First agenda, the U.S. has imposed a sweeping set of trade tariffs, up to 145% on Chinese electronics and heavy machinery, 50% on Brazilian soybeans and beef, and most recently, a 25% flat tariff on all Indian goods, from pharmaceuticals to textiles. Trump calls this economic rebalancing, but analysts say it's a direct play to restore U.S. manufacturing and squeeze strategic rivals. In response, China is restricting rare earth exports. India is warning of World Trade Organization retaliation, and companies worldwide are scrambling for alternatives. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, a 20% tariff rise could cost China nearly 0.6 percent points of GDP, and in a worst-case scenario, up to 2.5% points if retaliation continues. What will be the global impact? JP Morgan and UBS estimate a $2.75 trillion reduction in global GDP growth. By year-end, cutting it down to 2.5%. Why? Because these tariffs disrupt supply chains, weaken investor confidence, and cause firms to delay spending and hiring. India, once seen as a U.S. partner against China, is now facing a 25% blanket tariff. This targets key Indian exports: pharmaceuticals, textiles and garments, steel and aluminum, and IT hardware. India and U.S. trade topped $200 billion last year. A 25% tariff could wipe out $15 to $18 billion in annual revenues. Arvind Subramanian, former chief economic advisor to India, warns this move will cripple smaller exporters and drive up drug costs in America. The Indian government has promised support for exporters and is threatening World Trade Organization action. The tariffs might be aimed at foreign producers, but they hit American wallets hardest. The Atlanta Fed projects a 0.8% to 1.6% rise in consumer prices due to partial tariff pass-through. Deloitte reports that consumer sentiment dropped 18% the second quarter, with spending on electronics, furniture, and apparel declining. The San Francisco Fed estimates U.S. real incomes could fall by 0.4%, especially among low-income groups. But why? Because India supplies 30% of generic drugs used in the U.S. A 25% tariff there means rising costs for insulin, antibiotics, and more. Philip Coggan from Financial Times said, "These tariffs are protectionism, dressed as patriotism. The cost will haunt both consumers and exporters." The Hindu editorial wrote, "This is not about economics. This is strategic coercion." IMF via Reuters said, "Despite aggressive tariff, global growth is surprisingly stable, projected at 3.0% for 2025. But uncertainty remains the biggest threat. And WSJ reports, living standards are beginning to fall in emerging markets as U.S. policies distort global supply chains. The ripple effect is already visible. India is boosting ties with the EU and ASEAN. China is fast-tracking the Belt and Road 2.0. Emerging economies are deepening ties through BRICS Plus. The World Trade Organization warns of a splintered trade order where tariff blocs replace global cooperation. So where does this go? Talks are ongoing. A U.S.-China truce negotiation in Stockholm is expected to delay the next tariff hike due August 12th. Meanwhile, a U.S. trade court ruling in May 2025 has temporarily blocked some of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs on legal grounds. Businesses are asking, will this end in a new trade framework or escalate into long-term economic decoupling? Trump's tariffs are more than taxes, they're shaping the future of globalization. For now, U.S. consumers are paying more. Emerging markets are shifting alliances, and global growth hangs in the balance. What do you think? Are tariffs a necessary tool or a short-sighted gamble? Hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments.